It's a very quiet late night. I meditate alone in a familiar room. No lights, no sounds, no effort, just sitting. And let everything in my mind settle down. Darkness covers everything. My face is wrong. It has no light, no color. There is no physical image present. But then, in the midst of that silence, something strange started to happen. I still feel. I saw a face appear, and then a memory. Then an old road. Everything is becoming clear now. It's just like a dream coming true. But strangely, I can't imagine it. I don't actively reminisce. Those images just came to me, and I just quietly watched. It was in that moment. A question popped up from deep inside. What is seeing all these things? It's not the eyes because the face is already wrong. It's not light because there's nothing to shine anymore. It's not an imagination because I'm not trying to do anything at all. So, where does this perception come from? I feel like I don't need light, not limited by space or time. That's not an illusion. It's not just imagination. But it's a vivid proof that there is a power to know, always present, even though all physical senses have stopped. That story is my own experience. A night of meditation has opened up a perception beyond the senses. And it's also the starting point for the journey. Look deeply into what you're seeing. If you've ever had a moment like that too, you close your eyes but you still see something, then maybe you'll understand me. But don't rush to call it a mind or intuition or whatever. Because once we rush to define ourselves, we fall back into rational thinking. So, let's go all the way with this content, not to understand anything more, but to touch the knowledge that has never left us, even just a second. We believe that seeing is the function of the eye, and the eyes are the birthplace of consciousness. But honestly, I don't see anything at all. It's just like a camera lens receiving light, color, shape, and transmit that signal to the nervous system for processing. If the face is damaged, the signal is interrupted. But if the brain doesn't work, no matter how perfect the eyes are, I still can't see anything at all. That proves the eyes are just a gateway, not the subject of perception. What we perceive as real doesn't exist in our retinas. It's not in the visual nerve either. Those agencies are just intermediaries. It's a means for something deeper to operate. Awareness. Try to think back on the dreams you've had. In your dreams, you still see people and scenes, seeing movement, feeling emotion. You might be floating in mid-air right now, or standing in the middle of an unfamiliar forest that I've never set foot in, even though you know exactly where you are and who are talking to. Yet, your eyes are still mistaken. Each of our physical senses is not functioning. So, who is seeing that dream? What is seeing the image? Emotions and sounds while the body is completely still. Similarly, you might be sitting still. Close your eyes and remember a loved one who has passed away. The image is clearly displayed. You see them smiling, even hearing that familiar voice in your mind. Nobody but you knows what you are seeing. Because the whole process didn't happen on the surface, but it happened in an inner space. A place that science still can't measure with equipment. None of the senses are involved in those experiences, but you still see, still hold, still know. That leads to a conclusion. There is a power that transcends physical senses, and that ability doesn't come from the face, but from a place deeper than the eyes, deep inside the brain, even deeper than thoughts. Therefore, if we only see the face as the subject of our perception, you've missed the entire depth of consciousness. Eyes can go blind, but the inner perception still continues to operate. The eyes can be closed, but the mind still sees a whole world, many times larger than the physical world. That thing doesn't need light, not obscured by the eyelids, not dependent on external objects. It is the foundation of every experience, whether it's a dream, a memory, or the present. And if you start to question its true nature, you're taking the first steps on the path of discovering one's true self. When you come to the mind, it's what you see. The first thing to clarify is, the mind is not just the stream of thoughts running through your head. Thinking is just one of countless phenomena in life. Start and disappear in the mind, like waves rising and then dissipating on the surface of a lake. The mind is like a serene lake, and it's a place where anything can happen. The mind is not the brain, not just a biological organ like a heart or lungs. It has the function of processing information and memorizing coordination, but the brain cannot know its own existence. But the mind still knows the activities of the whole body, brain, and the thoughts that are passing by. The mind is not just the most common consciousness. Consciousness is the state of knowing when we are awake, knowing what we're doing and what we're feeling. But consciousness can still exist even when you're in a deep sleep without dreaming, or when causing anesthesia. As for the mind, it's not all there, because in the moment you wake up, knowledge immediately appears. Nobody starts it. Nobody presses the button. That knowledge is already there, only temporarily obscured by the disruption of brain activity and language. Many people believe that the mind is the individual consciousness, the feeling that I'm experiencing. I'm thinking that I'm observing, but that so-called consciousness, it's essentially just a conditional operating structure, formed from the experience of memories and identity. It operates like a stream of personal color, connecting with oneself and social role. It has a discriminatory reaction, and always create the feeling of a person who knows what they're doing. Only then did I realize the mind is different from the heart, which is knowledge without personal imprint. It's not associated with a name, memory, or role. When there's no longer the concept of I know, but there's only pure knowledge left. Do not discriminate. Do not call names. Then that's the mind. I'm not seeing this. But what I'm seeing happening doesn't need a teacher. It's the complete presence without a subject or an object. It's a natural radiance. Like the sun, it doesn't choose where to shine. There's a strange thing that few people notice. You can recognize that you are thinking. You may know that you're worried, remembering the past or imagining the future. Then it's obviously beyond our imagination. There's also something observing and thinking, and that's not what I'm thinking. That's the mind. The mind doesn't try to look, but it always looks. Not trying to listen, but always knowing. It doesn't have an image. There is no color, but it is the foundation for all other phenomena to manifest. When you close your eyes and imagine a scene, a face, a dream, those things are appearing in a certain space. That space is not in physics. It's not in the air either. It's in the heart. So, say it correctly. The mind is not what we see in the subjective sense. Go towards the object, but the mind is the comprehensive knowledge, not distinguishing between the subject and the object. The mind is not opposed to the world. The mind contains the world. When you realize that, you will find that true insight doesn't require effort. No need for a scene. There's no need for discrimination. The mind is the fundamental capacity for all phenomena to be known. Being able to see and feel all senses, all streams of consciousness, all emotions, all thoughts. It's all just waves rising on the surface of the lake of the heart, and that knowledge is the only thing that doesn't change, not being replaced, not being hurt by time or circumstances. If you know how to look at what is known, and not just looking at what is known, you are very close to the state of enlightenment, because at that time, you are no longer caught up in the images and sounds. Thinking that is returning to our original knowledge, not visible but always present, sincere mind. If we just stop at realizing that, the eyes are not the ones doing the seeing, and the mind is something deeper and more profound, then that knowledge is still very easy to fall into symbolism, because in our daily lives, we still see and hear, still feel it, and still react as if everything is really private, is an individual. So, how do we know what we're seeing with our mind? Or are you still just seeing with your own eyes and ego? Imagine a simple situation. You enter a room and saw a person sitting quietly there. If you see that person and immediately think they look sad, there must be something not going well, or this person doesn't like me, then you don't really see that person. You're seeing through memories, through emotions, through the layers of concepts that have accumulated from the past. That's a perception that has been filtered through a mind that is no longer clear. On the contrary, if you see something but don't add any inferences to it, I just saw that person sitting there. When you are present, that perception becomes complete. Without friends, without family, without any story to tell. There is only one known existence of life. That's when the mind feels. The mind doesn't feel like it's a deliberate action. It's not about you trying to replace it correctly. Please observe carefully. What happens when there's no one trying at all? When you're no longer a person who is learning and evaluating? While I'm in control, my natural insight starts to shine brightly. It's a state of consciousness so simple that even one doesn't pay attention to it. But that's precisely why it's so profound. When that one compliments you and you feel happy. But wait, who is having fun? Is it my mind or just a reinforced notion about myself? And when someone criticizes you, do you feel uncomfortable? Does a reaction arise in the body and mind? In that moment, if you just see the reaction without identifying with it, then you are seeing it with your mind. And if you get carried away by your emotions and want to justify them, want to change others, then that perception is still, and thus the operation of the ego. Seeing by mind doesn't mean you become insensitive or cold-hearted. On the contrary, it's a deeper life where you feel everything clearly, but not being overwhelmed by it. You can see the sadness is rising, but you are not sadness. You can see the anger coming out, but you're not an angry person. The mind is simply knowing that this is sadness. This is anger. This is thinking. It doesn't evaluate, doesn't judge, doesn't want to interfere. It only knows. Just in that state, you're starting to realize something very profound, that most of them, my life is about looking but not really seeing. Because that perception is tainted by past habits, personal needs, and the fear of getting hurt. It is no longer the pure perception of the mind, but it's a manipulated version. Due to the layers of the ego, seeing with the mind is like seeing for the first time. Don't cross the line. Don't repeat. Don't conclude. And when that insight is present, everything suddenly becomes so light and easy, even though it's a fit of anger, a sadness, or a painful experience, because the mind doesn't resist anything. Only see the mind. And in that realization, all resistance dissolves. If you really want to live with deep awareness, don't try to change the world. Don't try to force yourself to meditate more. Just observe what you're seeing. When the answer is no longer the eyes, no longer the memories, it's not what I know anymore, then you started to see with your mind. And from then on, everything became as clear as it really is. When perception becomes an illusion, the problem begins when the ego gets in the way. In the moment of seeing something arise, the ego immediately seizes it and assigns a person who is seeing to it. I'm looking at something, analyzing and understanding. And from then on, pure perception becomes a tool of the ego. We don't just look, but we always attach a story to it. I think this means I understand that because I know exactly what kind of people they are. What we see is no longer just a simple contact with reality, but it becomes a platform for selling and projecting meaning. Strengthen yourself and affirm your position in the world, and it is there that the perception starts to be taken over. Instead of looking with awareness, we look with fear. Instead of seeing through presence, I feel defensive out of habit. A stranger's glance can be misunderstood. It's contempt. An inadvertent word can be misinterpreted, become an attacker. The smallest action of another person, it could be blown into a dangerous situation, not because the world is distorted, but what we see has been distorted, because I always long to protect myself. You're not just distorting what you see, but also using perception as a tool to manipulate. Emotions make you think you're seeing the truth. In reality, you're just looking at yourself through a lens of the expectation of hurt and unresolved memories. You think you're sober, but actually, you're living in a dream, formed by the past and reflexes. Therefore, what's scary is not the wrong perception, but it's the feeling of being identified with the ego. When that happens, what we see will always tend to reinforce our feelings. I am the center. I am a person who knows I am right, and anything that goes against that image, all have been discarded, oppose or reject. This is the underlying reason why many people, even though they are educated, have experience, still living in the cycle of suffering. They can't see the truth as it is, because their perception is always clouded. Due to the need to assert oneself, they don't see other people as living human beings. But it's like a mirror to reflect the image that they want to believe about themselves. What I really see is not what I think I see. But the question is whether I'm still in it or not. If there's still an I standing behind what I see, then everything you see is just a form of reality. Feeling of being taken advantage of. It doesn't set you free. It only makes you try harder to build a wall between yourself and the world. The world. But if one day you look and there's no one to look at anymore, only what we see is operating on its own, then the ego has no more support. It can't cling to anything to interpret, to evaluate, self-respect. Things become clear, not tainted by the dust of time, not bearing the traces of the past. And from that insight, you start to live, and no longer repeating ourselves in each experience, seeing that the act of appropriation is not to fight against the self, but to no longer be controlled by it. You don't need to break your ego. Just realize that you're not it. And seeing it that way is seeing with the mind, a thing that is not possessed by the ego. I don't feel the need to assert anything. Aside that, you are no longer the center of any story, but it's the foundation for all the stories that can be born and fade away. Therefore, returning to the heart is not a journey of knowledge. It's not about learning anything new. Remember any lofty concept, believe in a certain spiritual system. On the contrary, returning to the mind is a reuse. Stop chasing after images and stop clinging to emotions. Stop being carried away by endless thoughts. In that pause, there is a space opens up, where knowledge emerges, and without needing any object to cling to, you don't need to try to find your mind, because, even as you're listening to these lines right now, what you're reading right now is it. It's not in ideology, it's not in thought, but it is the foundation, quietly knowing each passing line of words, observing each internal reaction that arises. You can't see the mind as an object, but if you are stopped long enough, you will directly realize that everything is happening in it. The mind doesn't come from the outside. You won't lose it even when you're distracted. It's still there like a shining mirror. Reflect each image, but don't get stuck in any form. When the mind clings to images, he has been transformed into what is called a general, its intelligence, its consciousness. But when there's nothing to hold onto anymore, it has returned to its original state, pure, clear, and serene. In that state, you are no longer a person who is observing, but it's the perspective that's operating naturally. No subject, no object, no interference. People often think they know their own character well, hobbies, strengths, and weaknesses, but that's just a psychological facade. It's just a tiny and easily changeable part. Seeing yourself is really recognizing what you're seeing. All those things, what is not bound by the name of memory or identity. And when you see what you see, when you become aware of your mind, you will know that you are not what you think you are. You are not the stories in your head. It's not just a fleeting feeling. It's not the image you're maintaining in front of society. You are the one seeing all those things appear and disappear. You are the foundation on which all experiences are born and returned to. Nobody can give you this. No knowledge can replace that experience. No religion can monopolize its definition. Only when you directly turn back to observe, only when you're quiet and introspective can you truly reconnect with yourself. Like a person drinking water, only that person knows whether the water is hot or cold. No one can see your mind, but when you find out for yourself, you know that each previous question, who am I? What is enlightenment? Everything vanishes like fog before the dawn, until one point you realize that what you see is not just a cognitive phenomenon, but it's the very foundation of life. It's not about seeing things as they are, but about seeing them as they are alive. We are operating every moment that you call, I'm living here. And that's the biggest shift in understanding perception. Live as you see fit. When you're still thinking about what you've seen, I'm contemplating, I'm analyzing, then you're still standing on the edge of it. But when you live in the present moment, don't bring your seeing. If you don't keep it, you can still see it. Then life becomes as light as a fluffy cloud. You no longer feel the urge to clarify everything, no longer have to search. Answer each question in your mind, because what you know is the answer. At that moment, things are no longer just objects for you to observe, but it's part of the movement along with what we see. You no longer see the flower as an object, but I can feel the life bursting out in it. Inseparable from yourself, you don't see flower anymore. There's only the encounter between two presences, without a name, without boundaries. When a bird's chirp rings out, you don't need to identify it as any particular bird. Where the inexpressible knowledge becomes complete when a wave of sadness hits, you don't need to dismiss it or uninstall it. Just seeing it there and immediately, it's not my sorrow anymore. But it's just a passing phenomenon in our perception, and then it's gone, like a cloud passing through the sky, leaving no trace behind. Living like that means living without being restrained. You can still chat, work, and be creative. But I no longer feel the need to act. We must maintain our image and control the results. Every action takes place naturally because it originates from distinctiveness, rather than stemming from worrying, a deficiency, or a desire to be affirmed. In that state, you're no longer looking for anything from life. It's not because you've become indifferent, but because you're living in your own origin of each answer. There's nothing to hold on to, nothing to defend. There's nothing to perfect. Everything is as it is, and that's enough. This is not indifference or giving up, but it's the most ordinary vitality. Live with everything without being bound by anything, like a drop of water falling into the ocean. It doesn't disappear, but becomes whole. You too, when you are no longer the one who is seeing, but the very act of seeing itself, then you are no longer someone in this world, but it's life recognizing itself through each gaze, every step, every breath. There's nothing secret, nothing to explain. There's only one thing to realize. You've never left that perception. You've never been anything other than that. Finally, after all the analyses, questions, and experiences, what remains is not a concept of the mind, but it's the vibrant silence within you right now. A stillness that doesn't need an explanation, a knowledge that no longer demands to be called by its name. Just in that state, the mind is no longer something distant and unattainable, but it's a vibrant reality that is in motion, right below every thought. The mind does not come from the past and does not lie in the future. The mind only reveals itself in the present moment, without effort, without imagination, but through unconditional presence. If you're quietly feeling yourself, no longer trying to think or analyze anymore, then you're already in the heart. No need for confirmation, no need for proof. Just living in that knowledge is enough. Don't let anyone make you believe that the mind is something too complicated, too awesome, only for those who are practicing or for special individuals. It doesn't belong to someone at all. It's not owned, not limited by one's identity or circumstances. Whoever you are, wherever you are, it's still always there, like a solid foundation, behind every movement of life. When you live from your heart, you're no longer looking for meaning and form. You are no longer dependent on right or wrong. It's about winning or losing, or the recognition of others. You start to see everything as it is, without embellishment, not doing push-ups. And at that time, life is no longer a battle, but it's a gentle flow, a place where every moment is filled with profound wisdom, and without words. Maybe that's also what we are quietly reminding you, not to aim for anything new, but to see again what has never left us. Not for you to accumulate another layer of knowledge about spirituality, but to make you realize that you already have everything. Not to make you believe in anything more, but let you let go of what's not real. Not to make you become another one, but let you return to what you already know inside you. Never been apart. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being fully present with us. And if there's anything left after all this, then that's you in your purest form.